Welcome to the latest episode of the Informing Choices mini-pod. When it comes to the medical devices sector, the integration of AI is accelerating just like in many others. For example, according to Research and Markets, the global artificial intelligence, machine learning, medical device market was valued at $4 billion in 2022 and is anticipated to reach $35.5 billion by 2032, a compound annual growth rate of in excess of 24%. The market expansion is driven by factors such as the presence of a large ecosystem of companies offering AI solutions, growing demand in the field of radiology and cardiology, and growing demand for wearable sensors and large number of government initiatives. But what are the underlying trends of how AI might continue to impact the market further and further still into the future? Today, I'm delighted to welcome Aritia Ltd founding director, Ian Watson, to the podcast. Ian, welcome along.
Thank you very much, Steve.
So through your consulting business, you aim to support the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning to accelerate compliant software delivery for health technology and medical device companies. So with that in mind, what do you see as the current five-year plus trends with AI and machine learning in healthcare devices?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. What's going to happen in the next 5 years? Because things have really started to take off. And you see in the decision makers in medical device companies that they have a fear of missing out, but they also have a fear of being first. And so something's going to happen. And the technology is already way beyond what's actually being used in the field. And I think it's best to look at this from both sides of the medical device. So you've got the patient side, and then you've got, of course, the company side, the companies that manufacture the devices. And I think the 5-year horizon, you're looking from the patient perspective at better diagnosis. And so as an example of this, we'd say MRI scans. At the moment, if you want to get a higher precision MRI scan, you need a more powerful magnet. You need to keep the patient laying there longer, not moving, and you need some experts to run that machine. What they're doing now is that they're upscaling the images so that you can use less powerful magnets. You can have the patient in there for less time, and they can move a little bit as well. So you can turn around images much faster. Adding to that, once you've upscaled them, you've also got automatic detection of artifacts on there too. And so you don't any longer need to wait for consultants to have a look at it in their particular area to decide what the diagnosis is based on that image and other data points that they have. And the good thing about AI algorithms is actually they look at everything, every artifact in that image, even if it's not that area that the specialists is looking into, they'll spot other areas and highlight those. They will also be able to do this almost instantly. So you don't have to wait a week, 2 weeks for your letter to come through the post anymore. You can go along, have the scan, get the data back and get the diagnosis back there and then. It can also combine it with other test data such as blood tests, they're quite common, and maybe pictures, pathology, all of that sort of thing, where AI can basically turn around the answer much quicker. And so you can get your diagnosis much quicker, and it will be a far more accurate diagnosis as well. I think what we're going to be seeing as well is the beginning of the establishment of data interconnectivity as well. So at the moment, you've got all of these disparate medical devices. You've got the hospital systems, you've got the patient information systems, you've got many of them. They all have different data formats, different communication formats, and data is king when it comes to AI. And so you're going to need to be able to somehow channel all of this data into one place to make the best of it in one format. So I think we're going to be seeing that as well. And I think we're going to be seeing wearable diagnostics doing a lot more as well, both dedicated wearable devices, but also mobile phones, taking photographs of skin and eyes and moving more of that primary healthcare into the home, away from the GP office. I think also it will give better treatment. And so once you've got all of this data, you have a diagnosis, you can then, or AI can anyway, then look at all of the people in the past who had similar test results as you, what course of treatment, what treatment protocol they went through, and what the success rates were. And it can pick and advise the health professionals on the best treatment protocol that will have the better outcomes for you. I think also another area that GPs just simply do not have the time to do at the moment is predictive analytics is going to rear its head. So this is where you've got an AI agent in the background churning through data for a particular patient. Maybe you've got some DNA results, maybe you've got some results from previous tests, maybe of complications they've been in the past, already diagnosed conditions they've got, and it can flag potential, screening for potential future issues before they happen. And so preventative, predictive maintenance of people almost. And robot assisted surgery is another wonderful area. It's really impressive. I've seen some of the robot assisted surgery devices, and it's really impressive how they're going at the moment. But of course, you've also got the human side, haven't you? And so public acceptance of all of their data and diagnosis being done by machines, by algorithms instead of people, being operated on by robots. And of course, with healthcare professionals, the changing role of healthcare professionals who probably want to spend more time with patients. Are they going to actually be spending more time with computers? Then the company side of things. And with AI algorithms, it's departed from the traditional medical device development strategy, which basically meant when the device that you were making was entirely deterministic, you could test every aspect of it in the R&D department, in the engineering department, before it ever went out to patients. And with AI algorithms, that's almost happening. It's no longer deterministic. That's happening on the fly with the patient. And so what you have to do then is really beef up your observability of those medical devices. You have to observe and monitor what those medical devices are doing, what those AI algorithms are doing, to make sure they're not drifting, to make sure they're still giving the right answers, and to make sure they're not harming anyone. And if they are, you need to, and this is the second major problem for medical device companies, you need to update that. So state-of-the-art time, it says. So you need to update that. State-of-the-art for AI is hours to days for algorithm. In the medical device field, most often companies can't update their software in months to a year. So that's going to have to change as well. And that gives you regulatory trouble as well. So there's a whole load of trouble ahead for the medical device companies. Regulatory submissions. So you're at least going to have to be able to update a part of your device, the algorithms, really quickly. But regulatory approval sometimes takes months, sometimes longer. And so how is that going to mesh with having these AI algorithms that are non-deterministic, that need to be monitored constantly and updated really quickly if they go wrong?
Do algorithms kind of get their own piece of the regulatory process? Because that's something that's kind of, I was going to say new, but it's emerging. It's been around for a while. But increasingly, if these systems are going to be able to kind of make their own decisions, then as well as this kind of ongoing monitoring that will potentially impact, I don't know, regulatory approval or whatever it is, there surely needs to be some part of the process that says, at least at the outset, this algorithm is going to do the things that we say it's going to do, as well as the mechanical and electrical other pieces of the device.
Yeah, so a very good point there, Steve. They are beginning to hit on this, and IEC 62304 is expected to have a release in August next year that covers AI in more detail. The FDA have got some guidance on AI in medical devices as well. And there's the EU have the AI Act, which also covers medical devices. It's a horizontal act that covers everything, and that also encompasses medical devices. And for the first time, the interesting thing there is it brings a human rights element in. So you have an ethical and moral obligation to how you treat the data that you have for people that trains the models. But it's not very prescriptive at the moment. And even the wording, the draft wording that I've seen going into 62304 next year, it's because AI is moving at such a pace, it can't be too prescriptive. And so things like state of the art is used. And that means whatever the eye of the beholder wants it to mean
Yes.
in a number of cases.
Let's come back to regulation rather in a little while, because I think most of what you've spoken about there seems to me to represent things that we can already see in train. So it's kind of an extrapolation of the developments we're already seeing and the potential implications when they get to market, some of the immediate challenges for regulators. But if we look at what some of the work going on to extend the potential of AI into artificial general intelligence, for example, then what might the implications be? And this is always a little bit fraught with danger, looking perhaps that far into the future. But if we look, say, 20 years time, what might we see in terms of diagnosis, treatment, and monitoring that's underpinned by AGI?
Yeah, so AGI could be a big game changer. And so you can have some fun with this one. You can look at things that would be really useful and go extreme on them, can't you? Just for the avoidance of doubt, so AGI, artificial general intelligence, what I'm going to assume it to mean here
Yep.
is that you've got AI models that can learn new skills themselves. They can autonomously develop themselves, improve themselves. So at the moment, they usually have a very rigid fixed purpose, and the models are being developed by humans. And at that sort of AGI stage, they start developing themselves. And they, of course, have all of the resources of all of the data centers and all of the compute power and all of the memory worldwide to do that. So they're going to suddenly launch off at an exponential rate, the theory goes. And it will be a bit of an opaque box for us humans. We'll see the outcomes that they have, but we'll have no idea how they got there, and we'll have no idea what's really going on. If you've ever looked at the weights of a model and you try to reverse engineer what on earth that means the decision-making process is in AI, it's nigh on impossible. And so they're going to be developing themselves. They're going to be developing very rapidly. And you could imagine that they have, they could be set a goal to achieve, and then they go about achieving it. And the sorts of stuff there could be seen both from the patient side of the device and, of course, the company side of the device again. And I think diagnosis-wise, it's going to move a whole lot more into the home. It's going to decentralize healthcare a great deal. And if you can imagine, the first step in the process at the moment is you go into your GP office, or maybe you have a call with someone, a phone call with someone, and you talk to a person. But what's going to be happening is you're going to have a chatbot, and that chatbot is going to be a video streaming. It's going to have a sympathetic face, probably geared to one that you can relate to and trust. It will figure out what that is. It will have inflections in the voice, so it makes an emotional bond with you and establishes trust. It will have context from previous conversations. It won't forget anything. And that will do the first part of the diagnosis. And it will be very good. It will be like all of the consultant experts around the world, all in one chatbot. Then maybe you need some tests done, and you can't do those at home. That said, probably there's going to be a whole lot you can do at home, because you've got wearables, and these wearable devices can probably measure a whole lot more than they can these days. And so maybe you've got everything at home to be able to diagnose you. But for that stuff that you haven't, you go to your GP still, you go to your primary area of primary care, and maybe they can do more now because stuff's automated. So maybe they can do their own blood tests, blood assays. Maybe they've got their own MRI machine, and the imaging of people is automated. And because you've got algorithms improving the quality of the images, you can take them quicker. Patients don't have to stay still. It's just a whole lot easier. And you get the algorithms to look at what the data is, what the images are. You spot artifacts. You do the diagnosis there and then whilst they wait. You could also imagine that it takes all of the other data about you as well, and maybe there's some new tests. There's a whole load of chemicals on your breath, for instance, that when you breathe out, it could reveal something about what's going on, the biological processes that are going on. If you've got AI to study data from millions of people and you know their health, then you could start looking at correlations between the chemicals on breath and diagnosis and treatment plans and that sort of thing. That could be something you could do at home. Then the treatment itself, again, it's going to be more treatment, I think, moving to primary care, so away from hospitals. Probably in hospitals, you're going to see stuff that only the stuff that you need beds for. So, recovering from surgery, if you're too ill to look after yourself, that sort of thing. And you might even have small, even now, some GPs do minor surgeries. Imagine if you could have a small robotic surgery facility at all of the primary care places. You could really take care of people at that point of care. Closed loop drug delivery. It seems a little bit strange that I have the same dose of paracetamol as someone who's half my size. But if you could have that closed loop monitoring of any drugs, not just paracetamol, of course, you could dose the drug to the effect that you need, and the blood percentage, or maybe you could look at the breath for monitoring the percentage. There's a whole raft of things that could be done there, and monitoring as well, I think, will really increase, because there's 2 points of monitoring. One would be to keep people healthy, to keep them out of the hospitals and the primary care in the first place, and the other one is once that they've been ill, once that they've been through something quite traumatic and they've been released home again, to monitor for exacerbations, to catch them early and stop them getting more serious. And you're going to have a whole load of extra tests that can be done with wearables, with mobile phones, and all of this data is just going to come together, and it's going to herald a new world that we can't even imagine yet.
I think you've started to imagine that pretty well. I mean, one of the kind of the things that's of real interest to me there is how nicely a world that seeks to enable care provision to move from secondary to primary care fits yet another government's attempt, certainly in the UK, to actually do that. So that's one thing that strikes me. The other is, we've been talking for years, haven't we, about targeted treatment, and being able to do things like, this is me, so what's the appropriate amount of paracetamol given, this amount of pain, is a really interesting example of those of that targeted treatment. And I think some of the other things that you spoke about there, about kind of instantaneous diagnosis almost, and I know I'm slightly putting words into your mouth there, but also the kind of the connectivity, both the data connectivity, but also the digital connectivity to make sure all these different streams are coming together. It feels a little bit like a health utopia, and you said at the beginning that this could be radically different over the 20 years. Could this be the solution to some of the NHS's problems, do you think?
It certainly feels like it would be, depending on the cost of running these AI models, of course. And it has a decentralizing feels like it's the right way to go. So taking the diagnosis and treatment to point of care, and even getting as much as you can into people's homes feels like it's the way to go, doesn't it? And you could almost, and I think it's a phrase that's been coined, see the wearables as health guardians, and so you can keep a lot of people more healthy, and this goes for mental health as well. So maybe the data has a correlation between how much you doom scroll on your mobile phone versus what sort of websites you're looking at versus certain biological traces from the wearable devices that you've got. And there's a whole load of correlation that can be looked at with this data. But I've sort of been displaying the utopian side. There is a dystopian side as well, and that's all of the data. And that becomes a target. So if you need all of this data in a format that can be digested by algorithms, it makes it a big target for cybersecurity threats as well. And then what can be done with that data? And what's the the legal and moral stance when something goes wrong? So when then the AI algorithm does something that kills someone or harms someone, who's responsible for that? So I think there's the other side of the coin as well that you need to consider.
And that then leads us, I think, into the notion that actually the regulatory environment, the regulatory landscape in the future, and not too far into the future, is going to need to be radically different, isn't it?
It is. It needs to be radically different now. They've already got here, and it's the monitoring and the time frame. So we mentioned earlier, didn't we, that with non-deterministic parts of medical devices, rather than the testing being done, in the engineering department, the monitoring has to be done at the patient side. When every decision it makes, you have to monitor it to make sure it's the right one. And that infrastructure is just not set up. And the knee-jerk reaction you'd think is, let's have the medical device companies do that. But maybe actually it's the regulatory bodies that do that. Maybe they're the ones who monitor that everything out there is working as it should. The other thing is it's sort of moves into three areas. You've got the medical regulations because it's a medical device. You've got the data protection regulations because it's consuming an awful lot of data and creating a lot of data as well. And you've got AI protection as well, because as AI becomes a bigger and bigger thing, like the EU have already done, there's going to have to be regulations to control that and make sure it's used safely and ethically. And the big problem is it's going, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be an opaque box. It's going to be a black box. And after you hit that sort of that AGI, artificial general intelligence, humans aren't really going to understand what the decision-making process is, how it got to that decision. So how do you regulate that? That's a very, very good point. And the timescales for regulatory compliance are going to have to be better and stricter and more detailed, but take less time. And so maybe they can use AI as well. So maybe the AI models can look at all of the documentation set that's generated by the medical device company, automatically go through it, make sure it's all above board, make sure nothing's missing, make sure it's safe, and then turn around with an answer within a day. And if you follow that thinking, they could even publish their models, their agents for doing this to the medical device companies, and they could plumb them in at every single stage of their development process, automatically generate the documentation, and almost have a running live feed as they go, whether they're meeting the regulations or not. It would also give the regulators an opportunity if they wanted to, or if they spotted that they had to introduce a new regulation, they had to control something. They could run it against all of the data they've got about all of the medical devices that they've approved and see what the gap is and see what the exposure of danger to patients out there is as well. But then you go even a step further and actually coding, so software, writing software with AI is going in the direction of, soon it's going to be doing, the majority of coding probably. But in the future with AGI, so could the mechanical design, so could the electronics design, and you could actually hand that over to manufacturing, and manufacturing is entirely automated. So it sets the machines up automatically, it monitors the machines are doing the right thing, it ships it. So you could have an update to a medical device, including mechanical assemblies and electronic assemblies, all of the mechatronic stuff, updated and delivered to the patient without a human ever being involved. And then it could automatically talk to the regulators to make sure everything has been done. And all the regulators need to do to make sure something's tightened up is introduce a new rule, and everything follows it automatically.
Ian, that's been quite extraordinary. I mean, if you think about how different the world might be in the way that you've outlined, both in terms of when we started talking about the implications of AGI, but then also how the regulatory environment would need to respond, then there's a big job of work to do, and that's just one sector. So the world has a lot coming at it as far as artificial intelligence and machine learning is considered over the near and far term, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And it's worth considering as well that typically the medical device industry, medical industry as a whole, is quite conservative, and it takes about 10 years for new ideas to be adopted. And so maybe that will slow the uptake down a bit.
Or maybe the companies will get faster using the technology at bringing products to market. Ian, thank you so much for your time. That's been absolutely fascinating. And thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes of the Informing Choices mini pod. And do let your friends and colleagues know all about the podcast.